Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Demo Tuesday. And in this week's demo, or in this week's session, we're going to look at data and AI estate management. And we're going to zero in on data auditing, which is one of the things that we did for one of our customers. And we'll look at that case study and how we achieved that whole process. Without further ado, let's get started. So before we get started, let's talk about us a little bit. We are one of the leading consulting firms here in US with a global reach. And our maxim is beyond imagination, because we take what the customer gives us and we take it further and above and beyond, so where they cannot imagine what they end up with because of the product that we put in their hands. We have expertise that spans over 50 years in leadership, highly skilled and certified professionals. We are also very comprehensive in data and AI solutions, as well as digital transformation for most of our customers. What we actually do is all things data. So if you have data, we will take care of it. That's from data strategy to governance to advanced analytics, AI and machine learning. Data engineering and integration, digital transformation, all that stuff coming through, even data pipelines. We have everything that entails data, we will take care of it. And then we're very vendor agnostic. And what that means is that we're not tied to any specific vendor. We have partnerships with major data organizations or corporations like Microsoft, Databricks, Snowflake, which allows us to be able to give our customers the best of breed rather than having our customers be tied to a specific platform. We advise them appropriately on what's best for them to save the cost, as well as get the best output from the platform itself. So now going back to our today's agenda on data and AI data estate, let's talk about some of the stats. So what we've seen in the market lately is that 53% of companies and organizations have formalized data strategy. So that's a pretty low number, putting in mind that data is one of the key strategic assets that every organization has. So having that number at 53% is actually pretty low. We would expect that most of our customers are not in the other 47% because it's important to have a data strategy. And if you don't have one, that's why we're here. The next thing, the other stat that we have come across lately is that 75% of new analytic content will be contextualized for intelligent applications through Gen AI by 2027. So we know for now the impact that Gen AI has done when it comes to all things organization. So everywhere you go, they say that chatbot or a virtual assistant that helping you to get things done quicker, faster and quicker. And this is going to continue growing through 2027 to where 75% of all data all content that's going to be being output there, it's actually going to be driven by data, and we're going to see growth in intelligent applications, which is actually one of the things that we're doing for some of our customers. So when we build or when we go to digital transformation, we're helping them with intelligent applications so that they can be able to make a decision quicker and also be able to see what's within their data estate. The other stat that we've seen is that 70% of enterprises will deploy at least one enterprise-wide Gen AI application this year. So this is critical here because it can have a lot of impact. So yes, there can be that deployment, but also we have to put in mind what that deployment means, because it can have a positive or negative impact or not even be used within an organization. So whenever we have these Gen AI applications being put out by organizations, we try to guide our customers so that they can be able to get the output that they are looking for, so that there is also adoption for the application to where it's not just another white elephant out there that nobody is using. So we make sure that whatever the applications that we're putting out, especially this Gen AI, the chatbots, the virtual assistants, have positive impact within the organization. But this is a growth that most of the companies are going to actually see within this year. Another stat that we've come across is now with all these things coming together, there will be an increase in cybersecurity issues. So most of the organizations, I think this one here was important to put out because as you transform or as you move toward data dependency with AI and advanced analytics, you also want to consider security, the data security per se. So the applications that are out there, you want to make sure that they are secure, and that will also lead to increase in spend so that we can at least be able to cover the cybersecurity issues. And then this one here was an important one, that by the year 2028, and these are all stats that are based off research by Gartner. By year 2028, most of the products or most of the applications that we do have within the organization, whether it's whatever it is within your organization that has Gen AI, it will be so tightly woven to personal and team productivity to where now there's no longer need for that oversight, because by 2028, we've collected so much data that we've trained our models to be very much aware of what our content is out there, and it can easily be able to cherry pick whenever the content is not appropriate within an organization based on the organizational culture. So by 2028, we're going to see this oversight reduce because now we don't have to really keep up on what's really going on because of how this model or the amount of data that we've used now to train these models. And then last but not least, 90% of the current analytic content, whatever content that you're using today to, whether it's your dashboards, whether it's your reports, the analytic content consumers will actually become content creators. This is again because of the data that we are continuing to gather and put it together and making sure that we have the right data, making sure that the data is clean, making sure that the data is complete, all that. So when you have those features in place, that will allow your content consumers become your content creators, right? So this is from analytic perspective. So this is now when we go to the full-blown self-service business intelligence, where we just provide data and then our consumers can actually be able to go get their answers for themselves. So we don't have to continuously keep on spinning out those dashboards, continue spinning out those reports. We can easily be able to just provide them data, and with that data now they'll be able to find the answers that they are looking for. Now, with that all being said, the major question becomes, what is your data strategy? So because now this is all going to be driving that capabilities that we've looked at from stats perspective, that's going to be driven by your data strategy. If you don't have a data strategy today in place, then that almost defeats the purpose of everything that we're going to be doing from data perspective. So that's important for us to have that, and that's one of the key things that we're going to be talking about today. So from a gender perspective, we're going to look at the organizational data strategies, how to implement a successful data strategy and make your data as a strategic asset. And then we're going to have a demo on some of the pieces. Remember, as we progress through this is going to be a multi-series presentation here. Today we are focusing primarily on data auditing, and then all the other features of data strategy, we're actually going to be looking into them as we continue. And then last but not least, we're going to look at licensing, and the key pieces here, we're going to be looking at licensing from Purview perspective. All right, so one of our customers, actually, this is one of our customers, Crewmates. They are very good when it comes to innovation and just being able to put things out, being able to provide content for their end users and their consumers. But what happened with them is as they grew, their data continued to grow because as we know, data is growing at crazy amounts of data. We're collecting crazy amount of data with data coming from everywhere nowadays. So they ended up with a data sprawl because they had their internal data coming in from their CRM systems, from their SQL servers, from their data structure internally on-prem, and then their multi investments in cloud data. So because they are also a global company, so they have all these data sets coming in, or all this data that they have that drives the organization, that led to quite a bit of data sprawl. Now that data sprawl posed a risk from compliance perspective, because now you're having to secure data that's siloed, that's all over the map. So being able to keep up with compliance, it became quite a huge task. And then, of course, now you start to worry about the data loss, the data corruption, because now once you lose this data, this is some of the key pieces that drive the business. So if you happen to lose this data now, it's a business continuity issue. And then, of course, because they are a global company and they have data from everywhere, the other issue that they had was lack of visibility. Then they have a data team, but that data team was not aware of all the data assets that they do have, because some of the departments, they are very independent and they could actually go out and be able to purchase a data platform for themselves, or an analytical tool, and then use that analytical tool to drive charts and visualization, so that they can make decisions quickly, rather than having to go through the data team to be able to get the reports that they need. So all these pieces here reduce the visibility that the customer could be able to see. The other thing that they ended up with is, because now they are purchasing all these different things, they have an analytical platform here that's Microsoft based, they have a Tableau based, they have they had another one which is data rails. They have a lot per se, based on each department, because each department was trying to use based on what they have the expertise in, and we'll look at that in just a moment. So they were ending up paying all these different licenses, and they were not, that formalization of having a streamlined business was not really a key piece. So what happened was their executive team decided that they need to bring this, put it in control. So the executive team got together and decided to have the data team be able to lead to solve these issues, so that they can be able to make sure that the data is centralized, it's secure, there's no corruption, there's compliance and all that. So the data team took that challenge, and like many organizations, it's where most of these pieces go to, most of these assignments go to. But what happened after that is what was very interesting, because despite the fact that the data team have the expertise to be able to drive this and be able to deliver, and hopefully be able to also show the savings or show the cost reduction in the organization, they ended up with other issues that were much more cultural issues. Some of the issues that they actually experienced were like lack of dialogue, because every department now felt that now you're intruding into our space, you're intruding into our data. Why do you want to control what we have? So there was lack of dialogue between the departments. Then different departments had different goals. So the goal alignments were not really organizational based. They were very departmental based, because every organization had their own, like I mentioned, they had different tools that they were using to do the analytics. So they felt that if we went to one tool, it's not going to actually solve our issues as a department. But again, because it does not align with what we are trying to accomplish as a department. And there were some other reasons behind that. And then, of course, the time management, because now the data team was chasing around all these other departments. And then, of course, there was no dialogue going on, or there was minimal dialogue going on. So the time management became an issue. Where everything was taking a long time for them to be able to accomplish what they wanted. So with that taking a long time, of course, the morale and of course the motivation reduced over time. There was not that excitement anymore of we're going to build something that actually going to be very corporate driven, or actually be able to solve the internal issues that we do have. So those are some of the issues that actually span out with the executive team trying to solve data issues, but they ended up having to uncover some corporate issues that they actually had internally. And being a larger organization, these are some of the things that are they call corporate politics. They're there and they are hard to avoid. So when the executive team figured out that there was no progress being made in a year's time, they decided to actually go ahead and approach this process differently. And the way they were going to do that was actually to bring in a partner from external, so that an external partner, so that they can be able to, these external people can be able to, or partner can be able to drive this process. And that's how we partnered with them for us to be able to provide this solution for them. So when they approached us, we came in and we found out what was going on with our primary focus was not actually to solve their cultural issues within the organization. It was actually to solve their data issues, because the ones that we had here, the data sprawl, the compliance issues, that's our expertise. That's where we now come into picture from expertise perspective. But the other piece that actually was very interesting is the issues that they had from corporate perspective. It was more trust between the departments. So having an external person was actually, or having a partner was actually good for the organization, because we were now able to create open communications where departments did not feel like they were being almost, can't find the right word there, but departments felt that now they have somebody that they can actually, doesn't have an agenda. They actually looking out for them to be able to solve the issues that they had. So our communication skills is what helped us there, because we were able to sit with these different departments, being stakeholders, and we could now be able to get out what they actually were looking for. So with us having that collaboration sessions, workshops allowed us to be able to extract what they were actually looking for, each department was looking for, as well as the stakeholders. And then during that whole process, the other piece that we did do was to create for them a customized solution that was a roadmap that showed them this is where we are and this is where we're going to end up with if we follow all the processes and procedures to be able to achieve this process that now allows us to be able to solve this challenge that they had. So it was a big opportunity for us. So with the roadmap and the implementation, we were able to also allow their team to continue the innovation that they do, because they're very good at that. And now giving them capability to do advanced analytics, machine learning, and AI, they were able now to start doing much more innovative things within the corporation side. And then the other thing that we did see, which was amazing throughout this, was the cost savings. And we'll talk about that and what we were able to do from cost perspective. So now, why all this was an issue for them is because different organizations see data strategies differently. So there is almost about 10 plus different data strategies that different organizations use. And we'll look at that, and then we'll see how we actually ended up solving this. So most of the organizations have this one here. This is usually the key one that drives most of the organization, where you have defensive versus offensive. And the defensive is where now you're looking from compliance perspective, regulation perspective. So it's geared usually to prevent data theft or data loss perspective. So that's one of the ones, and usually you see this from public-driven companies or government-driven companies, where they are approaching the data strategy from defensive perspective. And then there's also the one, the offensive one. The offensive one is where now the company is innovative. They want to improve products. They want to be able to gain that competitive edge because they want to grow their customer satisfaction. They want to grow revenue. They want to business growth. So they are very much more offensive when it comes to data strategy, and they take that risk where they want to be able to put data from data as quickly as possible without a lot of other structures in place. The other one that we usually see is the hybrid, where you find the balance, which is the combination of both of them, where you have the balance from security perspective, and then you leverage growth with it. So this one here is also very common and usually one of the best ones there because you have best of breed. The other one that we usually come across is the governance and quality. So this is where now the data strategy is driven by the accuracy, the security, the compliancy. You want to make sure that the data quality is good before you can actually be able to put it out for the end users. And each one of these have its own shortcomings, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Then we have the collection and management. There's some organizations that take data strategy from how we're going to collect the data based on where the data is. The data collection becomes their strategy. So we are going to follow this route here because we want to be able to collect this data from here. It's coming from cloud, it's coming from AS400 mainframe systems, it's coming from here. So that drives how we are going to actually define our data strategy. So that's another one that we usually see there. And then there's some organizations that we do see where you want to get the low-lying fruit, right? Which is where we use the use cases or quick wins. And this one here is usually aligned with business goals, the customer behaviors, because we are working with specific customer and that customer say that they are seeing this. So we're going to restructure our data strategy so that we can be able to cater for customer needs. So that's another data strategy that we usually see. And then usually you see this also for very small, quick projects where I just want this one to show just a quick win. And it has its advantages if you think about it, because at that point you want to demonstrate the value of data within the organization. So that's another one there that we usually see, and it has its place in an organization. Then we have technology and infrastructure. This one is a strategy where it's driven by what we have because we are in mainframe. So we're going to have our data strategy be defined by the systems and the infrastructure that we do have. So yes, it's ideal, but it also has its shortcomings because this decision, it does impact the usefulness of data because if it's just tied within specific technology, then at that point you are not really exploring other factors or other areas where actually you can be saving money from data storage perspective or even the tools that you do have within the organization. So that's another strategy that we usually see with organization. And then the other one is human resources and skills. We're going to define our data strategy based on skills of the team that we do have. And this one here has its major shortcomings because again, you have situations where you are only driving your data based on the people that you do have. And it helps when you leverage partnership with other organizations, like for instance, consulting firms, so that you can be able to get the best of breed. Because now when you drive your data strategy, because based on the skills that the people that you have internally, they might be outdated, they might be lacking in some areas, hence you're missing out also from defining the best solution for the organization. And last but not least, we also see from innovative competitive advantage. So this is where the companies put their strategy based on predictive analytics. So we want to be able to improve customer experience. We want to be able to grow. We want to be able to maintain that competitive edge. So that drives our data strategy or how we're going to be able to collect our data and be able to store data because we only want to use this data to gain that competitive advantage. So any other data that does not conform within those walls becomes unuseful for us. So these are some of the key strategies that we see with different organizations. There are others out there, but the major ones, when we work with our different organizations, this is usually what we see. Now, there's different things that do impact that process of defining what your data strategy is. And one of the pieces that we this is usually how we drive strategies whenever we go to a customer location and we want to be able to give them a formidable solution. So one of them is to define the objectives, be able to know exactly what are we trying to accomplish, because when you have that defined objectives, then it does allow us to be able to define what data strategy method we're going to use and what's best with for the customer. And yes, we do hybrids as well, where you can be able to marry these different strategies together so that you can get the best breed. But yes, defining the business objectives and defining what you want to accomplish down the road, that's actually one of the key pieces where that's very important whenever you're defining data as a strategic asset. And then, of course, auditing, being able to understand what you currently have, because that fills in the gaps of what is currently there and what you need so that you can be able to make those decisions that you defined with your objectives. That's why it flows together. Then, of course, the governance, the security, and the compliance, being able to understand what type of compliance you have to have, whether it's do you collect P2 data, personal identifiable data? Do you collect criminal justice data? Do you collect HIPAA data? All that stuff now drives what kind of strategy that we're going to have in place. And some of the auditing tools that we do work with do allow us to be able to uncover or be able to surface some of the data issues that we do see with the data that we see from the customers. And then the other key piece is once we define the objectives, we audit the data, and then we define the security and compliance. We understand the security and compliance of the organization. Then what we do next is to develop a roadmap. We create a very achievable roadmap with milestones. This is what we're going to accomplish at this point. This is what we're going to accomplish at here. Very measurable and very achievable so that the customer can actually see the realization of that process as we go through it. And then after that, then we start talking about the technology selections based on what we have, then building or enhancing what we have. So if the customer already has a data warehouse that sits on a cloud platform, do we want to enhance that, or do we want to build based on, again, based on the defined objectives? This also drives that business whether a business objective of whether we're going to build or we're going to enhance what's there. And then that now we start doing that roadmap implementation, because now we understand the technology, we understand what we want to do from governance perspective, we understand what we have from data estate perspective. So we start now building or implementing that whole process. After the implementation, the other key piece that we do is to monitor and scale. So this here, we don't leave customer hanging, because now we've completed this process here and it's up and running. We want to continuously monitor this process and scale based on the need. So if our data warehouse or if our data lake is not meeting our needs and our data has continued to grow, we monitor these processes, and we have processes in place that allows us to be able to monitor it so that we can be able to continue growing, or we can be able to scale down if we are not using the resources that we expected when we initiated the process. And then we continue to innovate. Data is changing, technology is changing on a daily basis. So we try here within our organization, we stay ahead of the game so that we can ensure that our customers are continuously innovating, continuously keeping up with what's changing. Like now, for instance, we'll talk about Purview here in a few, where things have changed quite a bit. So we want to make sure that our customers are changing as this, our customer data estate is changing, or it's evolving as things evolve. So that's the other piece that we do. And then last but not least, whenever we go through this process to ensure that you have data as a strategic asset for your organization, is to measure the success. So we also want at the end of all this process here, and as we continue to monitor and scale, that we want to continuously measure the success. Is it meeting the objective that we put together at the inception of the project, or is it where can we be able to improve? This is what we've seen. This is how we are measuring all that. And that's actually what allows us to be able to get to what we see here. So So we end up with what we call an impact. And this is actually what the impact we saw from the Crewmates, where there was about 20 to 25% reduction of time spent on data compliancy. There was about 500,000 hard dollars in cost savings. So that came from storage, from licensing, all that. This was an annual saving. So that there by itself was major for them, because now they could be able to use this funds to be able to do other things within their organization. And then there was increased in data literacy, where now the organization was able to find and be able to make decisions without having to go back to the data team to have, can you create me this report? Can you create me that report? Can this report be able to do this? So because now we have that data in place and data has the completeness, it allowed them to have the self-service business intelligence, where they could be able to go out and make these decisions on their own. The other thing that we did see is the accuracy in AI models, because now they are implementing AI, the Gen AI models. So the responses that now we see, and it's actually also the same thing with our organization here. Whenever we put this data together and whenever we define and have that complete data sets, our AI models are actually much more responsive and we get much more accurate answers, because we are dealing with data that's complete. So the models are not having to go out and fill in the blanks. So that also was another impact that Crewmates did see there. And now from AI models perspective, they're getting much better and quality results from their models. So that's the impact that we did see from this project perspective. Now, how did we achieve all this? So the way we achieved it initially, and this is usually how we approach different project. We first of all, especially when it comes to data project, we first of all ensure that we have a workshop, and this is where we sit with the stakeholders and we define the objectives, so we define the expectations and the goals, and then from those workshops we actually create a roadmap. That roadmap allows us to be able to figure out this is where we are and this is where we want to end up. So that allows us to be able to have achievable milestones, achievable goals that can be measurable, where we can be able to see from here, we've been able to achieve this, and then also define what type of technology we are going to be able to use, because now we have that understanding of everything that the organization wants to achieve from objective perspective. So we created a roadmap for them, and that roadmap, as I mentioned, they had milestones, technology, resources, requirements. How do we progress after we put this in place and we want to maintain it internally? What type of resources do we need? What type of training does the team need so that they can be able to continue leading this process, so that they can continue doing the day-to-day tasks that do require just maintaining the data platform, so that data does not stop coming. So we want to make sure that as the data comes, it's clean, it's complete, it's meeting the compliancy. We are not now introducing new data threats, all those things. So we also ensure that when we're going through these processes, that we advise our customers from resources perspective. These are the people that are actually will be ideal for this is the risk. This is the skills that the resource needs, so that they can be able to maintain the platform. The other thing we did was, from data estate perspective, we did a data deep dive, and this allowed us to be able to understand what data they do have, what type of vulnerabilities they have from data perspective. So this here, we actually use Microsoft Purview, which is what I am going to be demoing here in just a few. It does allow us to be able to do that data discovery process, data classification process, and we can also be able to curate data. We can be able to see the general health of data. So that allows us to be able to see exactly what the customer has based on their existing data. And then from there, now we're able to figure out from our roadmap perspective, from now being able to achieve that self-service BI, how do we put all this together? How do we put in the security piece? What type of data classifications do we need to do on all that, so that we can ensure that the data is meeting the needs. And then the other thing that we do is the governance. So once we understand the objectives, and then we understand the data that they do have, then we help the customer put together the data governance team. So the data governance team is also the team that's actually going to own the Purview, or they own the data, right? Or these are the guardians of the data. So the data stewards per se. So it does help us to be able to put that. And the way we come up with that is now from the stakeholders perspective, we can be able to define, like from the stakeholders perspective, we can be able to see the level of interest. We can be able to measure the skills. We can be able to see who has interest to be part of this governance team, and then based on their skills also. So we are able to put that together, that governance team that now helps move that vision forward beyond now the implementation and ensuring that there's that business continuity from the data platform perspective, because again, data is key, is everything now with organizations that we have. And then from there, we move over to the security and compliance. So this is another piece here that was very important. So we wanted to ensure that there's the data security posture for the crewmates, and this allows them to continuously monitor for threats, continuously look for vulnerabilities within their data, and ensure that the data lifecycle, because it's not all data that you want to keep forever. Some of the data needs to be offloaded after a certain amount of time. So being able to keep up with these life cycles, and again, we don't walk away from our customers. We actually continue supporting our customers throughout the journey, and as long as they require us to be able to help them with these processes. So these are some of the things that we do help them, being able to identify that life cycle, being ability to determine when do we offload this data set based on the organization needs, making sure that we have the security pieces, the role-based access, where not everybody needs access to all the data, but whoever has the privilege to see that data, they can be able to see it, ensuring that we have the transparent data encryption, where data is encrypted end-to-end, not just at rest, but end-to-end data encryption. And then, of course, the business continuity, because without backups, without ability to restore data, if there's any corruption, then that can be detrimental to any organization. So being able to have that business continuity is another piece there that we do bring into picture. And what Crewmate also appreciated through this process is now the ability to implement their AI models, because they can now be able to easily now, based on the data that they have, implement these AI models. And their AI models, they do have crazy ones, interesting ones, because again, they are very innovative group of folks there. So they have, because we have now centralized data, they have the ability now to drive their models. Their models can be able, their model agents can be able to read from different data points and be able to emit some of these processes. And we'll talk about that more in future sessions. So this is how we were able to achieve it. So now what I'm going to do is do a little bit of a dive in Microsoft Purview, so that you can actually be able to see how it works and how we were able to utilize Purview to be able to bring this data in, be able to analyze the data, be able to see the data health, general health of data and such. And then after that, we'll look at some of the licensing pieces. All right, so I'm gonna bring this guy here. So Microsoft Purview is a cloud-based platform that that Microsoft have put out, and Purview in general has been around for some time. It has seen some iterations over time. It was really entailed in two different perspectives, where we had the security piece, or the data security part, and then also the general security, where we could be able to do e-discoveries and such. Now it's all coming together. It's almost now a single platform where you can be able to do different things with it, and we'll look at that in just a moment. I'm going to really focus on the data side of it, not from the other pieces, but I'll show you where you can be able to go see those pieces if you need to go see those pieces. So of course, you have to have an Azure subscription for you to be able to put together Purview, and then you have to create your storage accounts. There's a setup that's involved for you to be able to get to where I am, where I can be able to navigate to purview.microsoft.com. And as you can see, this here is ours. This is actually for Amli. This is not, I'm not going to show the one for the Crewmate, but I'm going to show ours here, which is the same thing. Theirs have much more data. Theirs have much more data points that they are looking at than ours. So we'll talk about that. So to get started, once you navigate to purview.microsoft.com, then I'm gonna start with home. Here you have the ability to see different pieces on my left navigation here. And what you're seeing here, these blue icons here, these are based on the last item that I accessed. So if I go ahead and access data map, that's going to be the first item that I'm going to see here. There's a lot. We'll talk about them here in just a moment. But you can see here from the data map perspective, I can still be able to go back home. These are some of the key pieces here that I interact with for my day-to-day stuff. So from data map perspective, so we have different data assets and we have the ability to group our data. Where this becomes powerful is if I go to data sources, because I can actually be able to see a data map. I can be able to see this as a table, or I can actually be able to see it as a data map, where I see this our Amli Purview. And as you can see, I have the different classifications of my data. So I have data servers, where we are looking at all our data here. And then we have our AI agents. So like, for instance, we can be able to bring in ChatGPT if we have external agents that are tied to, let's say, for instance, your websites, your customer facing side, you can be able to drive that with external agents here. Then I have my Power BI estate here, where I can be able to do my operational report, my customer reports, my advanced analytics reports, and I have the ability to bring all that. So SQL Server perspective, I have the on-prem. Then this is one that I usually don't see a lot of customers taking care of because they have applications that are out there that are using Dataverse, but they have no idea what they're doing in Dataverse. So it's important for you to, if you don't have a way for you to identify all the data points that you do have from Dataverse perspective, it's ideal for you to have a tool that will allow you to have that visibility. Yes, there's other tools like, for instance, Center of Excellence. It will also be able to give you that visibility. But here, I have the ability to collect the data, be able to see the data sensitivity that I do have out there. If, let's say, for instance, I have social security numbers, if I have credit card numbers, I can be able to do all that. I can be able to scan that data and I can be able to see what I have. So it's very easy for you to be able to create and register any of the sources here. Like, for instance, if I wanted to add another server here or another platform, these are different registered data sources that I can be able to tap into. So you have your Azure platform where you can be able to bring Databricks, Azure Databricks, that is. You have all your Azure stuff that you have out there, the Cosmos DB and such. One of the pieces here that I haven't seen that I think will be very ideal, and we've seen this request from other customers, is because it's also a data set, is bringing data from SharePoint perspective. I think that will be tremendous for Microsoft to consider. And this is something that we've floated to them as one of their partners. From data perspective, you have your Amazon, you have your Cassandra's, your DB2, your MongoDBs, all different type of data platforms that you can be able to bring in so that you can have that visibility of your data. And we'll talk about that here in just a few. And then from your files perspective, you have the ability to bring in the AWS and also the S3, where you can the S3 buckets so that you can see what you have, what type of data that you do have out there. And then from services perspective, this is where now we are bringing in, this was actually a huge addition at Microsoft Ignite, being able to now scan your AI agents so that you can see what you have out there. So in this case here, we have our ChatGPT Enterprise, which is what we use internally to develop our own chatbots. So we have the ability to scan and be able to see what we have out there, or our virtual agents. So that's a key piece there. And then if you have machine learning, that's another one there that you can be able to bring in and be able to visualize. And then of course your Power BI estate, that's important because you want to be aware of what you have and what type of reports your users are actually experiencing out there. So these are different ways that you can be able to bring in data. And to bring data, it's pretty straightforward. If I go back to, let's say, for instance, data here, and let's say I want to bring in a SQL Server, all I need to do is just go ahead and be able to provide the endpoint, which is either your server IP address, your instance name and such, and then which domain. In this case, the domain is where I'm putting this. You can have multiple domains. In our case here, we have Purview, and then the collection where I want that specific server to be registered, whether I want it to be in an on-prem, if I want it to be in cloud, whatever I want to, whatever collection I want it to be in. And then after I provide whatever information that I'm going to provide here, and I'm just going to put a fictitious name there. Now you see that I have this server here that I can actually go back and view. If I view that, I can actually initiate a scan. I can be able to see what assets I have out there. And the assets, these are your tables, your views. We have one of the other pieces from data perspective that we haven't seen Purview do yet, and hopefully it will be able to do this, is also to scan, like for instance, your stock procedures. So those are assets that are not there yet. Hopefully they will be there with time, where we can be able to see that as part of our assets. So you are able to do new scans, you're able to edit the data source, you're able to, and if I do the edit, that's where I can be able to change all that. You're able to delete whatever you have. Going back to my data map here. We can see, like for instance, as I mentioned, I have my 7.1, my data sources here with one asset, which is my Purview container here, or my domain here. So we have different scans that you can be able to do, and then of course you can be able to monitor what's going on. Then from source perspective, source management perspective, this is another cool piece that we do have here in this platform, because I can set scan rules where I can say go ahead and scan based on these specific data points or this specific type of system. I can have, like for instance, if I want to scan rules for P2 data, I can be able to create that. I can be able to create my own. And when I create my own, where I'm creating those patterns that can be from like for instance, the regex, I can be able to build that, or I can actually bring in a file. I can import a file and be able to create these scan rules based on that. Then the integration runtime, that's what allows us to be able to scan internal systems. So integration runtime allows you to be able to interact with your on-prem servers. Data lineage connections, credentials, that's credentials. This is where we have our key vault. So I can see my key vaults here and what I have there. So lineage connection, managed identities, connections, if I have connections that I want to bring in. So this is like your S3s, your Snowflakes, your Databricks and such. You have the ability to bring all that in. And then other data points if you want to bring other private endpoints. Now, going back, I can either navigate from back to home, or I can do the related solutions. And this unified catalog here is where you're going to find most of the good things about your data, because now this is where I can actually be able to see the products that I do have. I can be able to see the scans that I do have. I can actually be able to create an enterprise glossary. And what that means is that I can be able to create a word that if you encounter AMLI data, it also means Purview, or this is just that glossary that translates the wording within the organization. When I see this, that actually means also this within the organization, because one of the things that we did experience with Crewmates was their data definitions were different based on the departments. It's the same data set, but the data definitions were different. So having that enterprise glossary where we know that this identifier also means this is also important. And I'm gonna rush a little bit here because of time. I also wanted to highlight on this one here. This is another key additional feature that we did not have in the previous version of Purview. Now we do have it, where I can be able to see my active controls, what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's expired. I can be able to do that. I can actually be able to do my data quality. I can be able to see if I have any actions that needs to be taken based on that data quality issues that we do have. And then, of course, be able to generate reports. And we'll talk about the reports here in just a moment from cost perspective, because that's also important. And then from catalog perspective, this is where we can be able to create governance domains, data products. We already talked about that, where somebody can be able to request access. So if I have somebody request access, so that's this is where all that's going to show up. So that's from the unified catalog perspective. Navigating back over here, I wanted to highlight, let me go over here because this is where most of now the stuff is. So when you go to the solutions, you have plethora of things that you can be able to do. So you can be able to see the communication compliance. And this is what I was talking about, that now this has been married from what we had from compliance perspective with the data platform perspective now, where we have all of it now here. I can be able to see if we have any e-discovery, if we have the DSPM for AI, I can be able to see that. I can be able to see information barriers. If there's any information barriers, information protection, I can be able to see that, all workflows that are running. And the workflows, this is now based on, for instance, the request based on action that I want to be taken on the data set. That's where that comes into picture. And as I mentioned, as you access the solutions here, this always will show you the last 5 that you accessed. So it's almost like bookmarks of what you've been accessing here. So if you are in a situation where you're trying to figure out why am I only seeing this, I'm not seeing the rest, that's because that's the last item that you did access. So that's some of the key pieces that we do have. As I mentioned, I'm going to rush a little bit based on the fact that we are almost out of time. Now, let me go back here and then I'll open it up for questions here in just a moment. The next thing that I wanted us to talk about is licensing, because Purview can be expensive if you don't pay attention on what you have and don't have a clear map of what you're trying to achieve. So we as an organization, we do help you be able to identify key pieces of Purview and what allows you to be able to get the best of your bag. So as you can see here, they don't seem like much. You have your DLP at a cost of 0.1 cents, and remember this is all subscription based. You have your data governance, which is about 50 cents per month. You have your enterprise, but all these little things, they actually do add up. If we go to the cost calculator and we look at the pricing, so this is actually priced based on a month. So from monthly perspective, you have about the cost of about $1,074. So it all again depends on how you're using Purview, what you want to achieve out of Purview, and having to put these pieces in place so that you can get the best out of the platform. And as of now, being able to scan your on-prem SQL Server and being able to scan your Power BI, all those are free at this point. The Microsoft indicates that that's going to be for a limited time. We don't know for how long, but again, we're here also as licensed VAR, so we can be able to also give you hopefully better pricing based on what you see here if you're wanting to achieve that licensing as well. So that's what I wanted to put together, and I hope this was informative. And as we continue to look at the data strategy and other pieces that come into picture, you want to first of all ensure that you have your objective in place, and then once we have the objective in place, then now we start looking at what do we currently have, and that's where Purview comes into picture, because we have the ability to do these scans. We have the ability to do that data discovery process where it doesn't have to be a manual process where you are getting on to every SQL server, every Oracle server, every Power BI to figure out what you have out there. So having this tool in your toolbox helps a lot because it makes life easy. Thank you so much, and I am going to open the floor for any questions.